Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's deep dive. I'm your host, and we are getting into a really fascinating but, well, honestly kind of terrifying topic today.
Hey everyone, yeah, I am really glad to be here for this one. As a defense analyst, this is the exact issue keeping people in my field up at night.
Right, so let's just jump right in. Imagine for a second that you're, just sitting on your couch.
Just a normal evening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're scrolling through your phone,
Mhm.
and you glance up at the evening news.
Right.
And you're watching coverage of this massive, high-tech, global conflict. You see the night sky lit up with these incredible flashes of light.
Oh yeah, the footage is always striking. Interceptors just streaking across the horizon.
Exactly. You see these billion-dollar warships launching salvos into the dark. And it just looks like this endless, unstoppable machine of modern warfare.
It really gives that impression of limitless power.
It does. But as you watch those flashes, you might find yourself wondering a very simple but really terrifying question. How long can this actually last before the world simply runs out of ammo?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question.
Right, because if you ask the CEO of Europe's largest defense contractor, the answer is, well, about one more month.
Yeah, that invisible ticking clock is behind every single piece of footage you see on the news.
It really changes how you look at those videos.
It does. We tend to think of modern military arsenals as these bottomless pits of technology, constantly replenished by massive industrial bases.
Right, like Amazon Prime for missiles.
Exactly. But the reality is far more fragile. Analysts have been watching this fragility with mounting anxiety since early March. We've been looking at a critical vulnerability in global military readiness.
A vulnerability that most people probably don't even know exists.
Absolutely. We are tracking a depletion rate that peacetime supply chains simply were not built to handle.
And that terrifying reality is our mission for today's deep dive. We are looking at a very stark public warning from Armin Papiger.
Right, the CEO of Rheinmetall.
Yes, which is Germany's largest defense company. On March 19th, he went on CNBC and stated flatly that global air defense stockpiles across the United States, Europe, and the Middle East are almost empty.
That phrase, almost empty, is chilling coming from someone in his position.
It really is.
Huh.
He warned that if the current conflict continues for another 30 days, we will have almost no missiles available.
Which is a completely unprecedented situation for modern militaries.
So to understand this, we're pulling from a massive stack of recent analyses. These sources cover the weapons consumption during the ongoing Operation Epic Fury.
Right, the intense conflict involving the U.S., Israel, and Iran.
Exactly. We are going to look at the burn rates, the brutal economics of what's actually being fired, and what an empty shelf means for global security. Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how the shelves got emptied so fast, we really have to look at the sheer mind-boggling volume of the opening act of this conflict.
Yeah, to grasp the depletion, you really have to understand the velocity of the consumption.
The speed of it.
Exactly. The numbers we are seeing in the source data, they just completely defy standard logistical planning models.
Let's get into those numbers.
So let's look at the data from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, or CSIS.
A very highly respected think tank.
Right. In just the first 6 days of the war, the United States used approximately 319 Tomahawk cruise missiles.
319 in 6 days.
Yes, and that is alongside thousands of other munitions. The Foreign Policy Research Institute has designated this the most intense opening air campaign in recent history.
And the cost is just staggering. I mean, the Pentagon reported to Congress that for just those first 6 days, the financial burn was $11.3 billion.
$11.3 billion.
Evaporated in under a week. I mean, think about it. It's like an average person taking their entire salary for a whole decade and just blowing through it in a single weekend.
That is a very apt comparison, because when a billion-dollar warship launches a Tomahawk, it's firing a $2 million piece of highly complex machinery.
Right, a missile that flies low to the ground for 1,000 miles.
Exactly. Firing over 300 of those in a week means you are literally burning through a massive chunk of your national industrial output in a matter of days.
But here is where I want to push back on the sources a bit, or at least try to find some sort of silver lining here.
Okay, let's hear it.
The analyst at CSIS noted that around day 4 of the operation, the U.S. hit a munitions transition point.
Right, the pivot.
Yeah. They realized the burn rate was totally unsustainable, so they stopped using the super expensive long-range precision weapons and shifted heavily to JDAM guided bombs.
Let's dig into the mechanics of that shift, because it really is a critical pivot in how the offensive campaign was managed.
Because a JDAM is totally different from a Tomahawk.
Completely different. A JDAM isn't actually a bomb itself. It stands for Joint Direct Attack Munition.
Okay.
It is essentially just a relatively inexpensive kit. It consists of a GPS receiver and steerable tail fins.
So it's an add-on.
Exactly. You literally strap it onto a standard unguided gravity bomb. It turns a dumb bomb into a highly precise, smart weapon.
That makes total sense. And that explains why the daily costs plummeted to about $500 million once they made the switch.
Right. The financial bleed slowed down.
Yeah, they stopped firing $2 million self-propelled cruise missiles and started dropping $30,000 retrofitted gravity bombs.
Which is much more sustainable.
Right. So if military planners found this massive, budget hack on day 4 and transitioned to cheaper options, doesn't that solve the stockpile problem?
It seems like it would, right?
Yeah. Why is the Rheinmetall CEO warning about having almost no missiles available if we've already figured out how to fight on a budget?
What's fascinating here is the rigid divide between offensive and defensive logistics.
Okay, walk me through that.
You are entirely correct that the U.S. military transitioned to cheaper offensive munitions. If you're attacking a target, you can choose to fly a plane closer and drop a cheaper JDAM.
Right. You dictate the terms.
Exactly. You control that timeline and that tactical choice. But the damage to the global stockpiles,
The real crisis.
right, the truly dangerous, catastrophic damage, had already been done and continues to be done on the defensive side.
Because you can't control the defense in the same way.
Precisely. You do not control what the enemy fires at you, and you certainly cannot easily control the technology required to intercept it.
Because the logistics of defending the sky are infinitely more complex than just dropping a bomb on a static target.
So much more complex. Let's look at the highly specialized interceptors required for layered air defense. In that exact same first week, the United States fired approximately 140 Patriot PAC-3 interceptors.
Wow.
And more than 150 TAG interceptors.
And the systems operate entirely differently, too.
They do.
I mean, the TAB stands for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. It is designed to hit ballistic missiles way up in the upper atmosphere.
Sometimes even outside the Earth's atmosphere.
Right. Uses kinetic energy. It literally has to hit a bullet with a bullet at thousands of miles an hour.
It's an incredible feat of engineering.
And then the Patriot system is the lower tier defense, right? It's meant to catch the threats that slip into the terminal phase closer to the ground.
Exactly. And the engineering required to achieve those intercepts is breathtaking, which is why they are produced at such a slow rate.
So how slow is slow?
Well, to put that 150 THAAD interceptor number into perspective, consider the Pentagon's procurement data.
Okay.
The military had only ordered 39 new THAAD interceptors for delivery for the entirety of next year.
Wait, I want to make sure I'm hearing that correctly.
It's a stark contrast.
They burned through over 150 THAAD interceptors in the first 7 days of combat,
Yes.
but the entire manufacturing pipeline only have 39 of them scheduled for delivery over the next 12 months.
Exactly. The math of consumption versus production is completely inverted. You are burning nearly 4 years' worth of defensive inventory in a single week.
Wow. Which brings us to the harsh economics of modern warfare. This is where we shift focus from what military forces are choosing to drop to what they're being forced to shoot down.
Right.
The source analyses refer to this as the cost-to-trade ratio.
This ratio is at the absolute heart of the global arsenal crisis. It is a fundamental, potentially unsolvable math problem for modern defense planners.
The specific numbers from Operation Epic Fury are just mind-bending. Let's look at one side of the ledger. You have Iran's Shahed 136 drones.
Right, the loitering munitions.
Yeah, these are essentially delta-wing drones. They use loud, relatively cheap commercial engines. I mean, it's basically a moped engine in the sky, carrying an explosive warhead.
Very low tech compared to the interceptors.
Exactly. Our sources estimate these cost somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 each to mass produce.
A very low barrier to entry.
Right. But then on the other side of the ledger, you have the Patriot interceptors the U.S. and its allies use to shoot those drones out of the sky.
And those Patriot missiles cost between $3 million and $4 million per shot.
Per shot. You have the $20,000 piece of incoming machinery being destroyed by a $4 million piece of defensive machinery.
It's completely lopsided.
The Council on Foreign Relations ran the numbers on this asymmetry. They noted that the ratio could be as high as 70-1 in Iran's favor.
70-1.
It's like having to build a custom supersonic Ferrari that guides itself by radar, just to crash it into a guy riding a $500 moped.
That is a very vivid way to put it.
And every time a new moped appears, you have to build another multi-million-dollar Ferrari to crash into it.
The Ferrari and moped analogy captures the financial absurdity perfectly. But we also have to look at the tactical reality to understand the gravity for military commanders.
Right, because they aren't just looking at spreadsheets.
Exactly. That $50,000 drone is carrying a highly lethal payload aimed at a critical asset.
So you can't just ignore it.
No. It might be programmed to strike a billion-dollar radar array, a heavily populated barracks, or a critical power plant.
So you can't just choose to let the moped hit the building.
You cannot opt out of air defense. The commander on the ground has to neutralize the threat.
Even if the math is terrible.
Even if the math is terrible. And if the only tool available in the sky at that exact millisecond is a $4 million Patriot missile, the commander fires the Patriot.
They have no choice.
Right. You are forced into an unsustainable financial and logistical loop because the strategic consequences of not firing are just too high.
The loss of life or the destruction of irreplaceable infrastructure.
Yes, those consequences are simply too catastrophic to allow.
We actually have a quote in the source material from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth acknowledging this exact difficult arithmetic.
Yes, he addressed this directly.
And just to report this completely neutrally based on our sources, he was addressing the ongoing operations, and he stated that the United States had, quote, pushed every air defense system, sparing no expense.
Sparing no expense is the operational reality in the moment of combat.
Right.
When a swarm of loitering munitions is in the air, the 70-to-1 cost-to-trade ratio doesn't matter to the personnel trying to survive the night.
They just need to stay alive.
Exactly. But it matters immensely to the defense industrial base watching their global inventory plummet towards zero.
So if you're a defense planner bleeding $4 million a shot against a $50,000 drone, you can't just keep writing checks.
No, the bank will eventually run out.
Right. You have to change the math. So how is the Pentagon actually trying to break this financial loop and adapt to this terrifying reality?
Well, the asymmetry has forced a desperate search for alternative interception methods. You simply cannot maintain a 70-to-1 cost disadvantage in a protracted conflict without completely bankrupting your military readiness.
It's just not viable long term.
No. The economic bleed has forced a radical shift in thinking.
And the sources show the Pentagon is actively exploring some incredibly cheap alternatives to address this.
They're looking everywhere for solutions.
They're currently looking at Ukrainian-made interceptor drones, and these cost as little as $2,500 each.
$2,500.
Right. Instead of relying on complex radar-guided missiles, these are first-person view, or FPV, drones.
Very different technology.
Yeah, they intercept the incoming Shaheds through kinetic ramming. They literally have an operator fly a cheap, fast drone directly into the propeller or wing of the incoming munition.
It's brilliant in its simplicity.
It really is. Going from a $4 million interceptor to a $2,500 kamikaze drone is an unbelievable paradigm shift.
It is, and we're seeing the pressure of this conflict accelerate what defense analysts are calling a multi-year super cycle of rearmament.
A super cycle. What does that actually mean on the ground?
It means the realization that traditional stockpiles are fundamentally inadequate against mass-produced cheap threats has triggered a massive industrial and technological pivot.
And we see that pivot happening at the highest political levels right now, too.
Yes, we do.
Again, remaining totally neutral and just reporting the source facts, President Trump recently met with major defense contractors at the White House.
Right, a very high-profile meeting.
And following that meeting, he declared an agreement to quadruple the production of advanced interceptor systems.
That mandate is a clear signal of the prioritization happening across the defense sector. The directive from the top down is to expand the industrial base and build as fast as physically possible.
The major defense corporations are certainly experiencing a massive windfall from this supercycle.
Oh, absolutely. The numbers are huge.
Going back to Rheinmetall, the company whose CEO warned about the almost empty stockpiles, their order backlog has completely ballooned.
It's massive now.
They're nearly 70 billion euros. And they are projecting sales growth of up to 45% by 2026.
That is astronomical growth for a defense contractor.
It is. And other major players like RTX Corporation and Northrop Grumman are similarly positioned for a massive surge in replacement orders.
The demand signal is clearer than it has been since the height of the Cold War.
Everyone needs ammo.
Exactly. Every allied nation is looking at the burn rate in the Middle East and realizing their own cupboards are basically bare.
And some of the delivery numbers look really impressive on paper. For instance, the sources highlight that Lockheed Martin delivered a record 620 PAS-3 interceptors in 2025.
That is a record for them, yes.
But here's where it gets really interesting and where I want to push back again on this idea that we're out of the woods.
Okay, lay it out.
If the White House is securing agreements to quadruple production, and if defense contractors are sitting on 70 billion euro backlogs to build more,
right,
and if we're hitting record delivery numbers like 620 interceptors, isn't the free market responding exactly how it should? Aren't we on the path to fixing this bottleneck?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the optimism of those production numbers crashes very hard into the physical reality of manufacturing timelines.
Break that down for me, because 620 interceptors sounds like a massive industrial achievement.
620 is a monumental achievement for peacetime production. But remember, the consumption data from the very first week of Operation Epic Fury.
The 140 Patriots in a week.
Yes. Allied forces fired 140 Patriot interceptors in 7 days. At that burn rate, an entire year of record-breaking production, all 620 interceptors, would be completely consumed in just over a month of high-intensity combat.
Wow. An entire year's worth of record-breaking factory output gone in 5 weeks.
Exactly. Furthermore, you cannot simply flip a switch and build thousands of $4 million missiles overnight.
Even if you have the money.
No matter how much money is allocated, the manufacturing bottlenecks are severe. Consider the solid rocket motors required for these interceptors.
The fuel.
Right. You have to mix the highly volatile propellant perfectly, pour it into the motor casing, and let it cure for months.
Months just for the fuel to dry.
Yes. And if there is a single microscopic air bubble in that cured propellant, the missile will explode on the launch pad.
Oh my gosh. And it's not just the rocket fuel, right?
Not at all.
I mean, the microchips and the seekers in the nose of a Patriot or Sukhoi missile have to be engineered to survive 30 to 40 Gs of force.
That is an immense amount of physical stress.
Yes. They have to survive that as they maneuver to hit a target at supersonic speeds. You need highly specialized components, rare earth materials, and heavily cleared engineering workforces.
The analysts make it incredibly clear. You can accelerate funding immediately, but you cannot accelerate the laws of physics or the curing time of solid rocket fuel.
The timeline is just fixed.
It is. It will take years of sustained maximum capacity production to replenish what has been burned in mere weeks.
So what does this all mean? Especially for you listening to this deep dive.
It's a great question.
You might be commuting to work right now, or making dinner, living thousands of miles away from the Middle East. Why does a specific logistical bottleneck regarding solid rocket motors and drone interception actually matter to your daily life?
Well, global security operates as a highly interconnected geometric web. The stockpiles currently being drained in Operation Epic Fury are the exact same stockpiles meant to project power and deter aggression everywhere else on the globe.
The CSIS report draws a very stark conclusion on this exact point. They explicitly state that these reduced inventories pose severe risks globally.
They do.
They point particularly to vulnerabilities in the Western Pacific and in Ukraine. It's really just a matter of physical geography.
Exactly. You can only put the asset in one place.
Right. A Patriot battery or a Tachad system provides a specific, measurable umbrella of deterrence. If you have to move those systems and their limited missile stockpiles to the Middle East, a base in the Pacific is physically left uncovered.
And it creates a dangerous window of opportunity for other actors.
Because they can see the shortage.
Of course. If a competing nation observes that the United States cannot sustain a high-intensity air defense campaign because the industrial base physically lacks the interceptors, the geopolitical calculus for initiating a conflict in another theater changes dramatically.
The deterrence umbrella folds up.
It does. It completely folds up.
We started this deep dive by picturing the night sky lit up with the most advanced, awe-inspiring weaponry humanity has ever created.
It's an unforgettable image.
But as we look at the reality of those empty shelves and the excruciatingly slow manufacturing timelines, it leaves us with something really unsettling to think about.
It really raises an important question about whether the entire paradigm of military dominance is undergoing a permanent shift.
Looking at a $20,000 commercial engine drone forcing the launch of a $4 million precision-engineered missile, it makes you wonder about the future of global conflict.
It changes the whole dynamic.
What happens when the ultimate decider of global power isn't the nation with the most sophisticated, futuristic, expensive technology, but simply the nation that can mass produce the cheapest weapons the fastest.
That is a very sobering thought.
It's a thought that completely rewrites how we understand national security. Keep an eye on the skies and a very close eye on those supply chains. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.